Today, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with a great friend, Chukwuebuka Nwana, Stanley Nwana,
Yes, sir.
a.k.a. Ibuka.
Yes, sir.
How's
Yes,
it
sir.
feeling, bro? How you doing today, man?
Doing wonderful. How are you, bro?
Man, I'm blessed, man. You know, it's a beautiful day. I think when we get to wake up, hop out of bed, to me at least, I've already won the life lottery. That's how I think about life. Everything else is easy.
You sound like a dad.
I like what you did there. That's good. But I am, fortunately I am.
Yes, sir.
But it's a great day, man. And this conversation, I've been looking forward to, man. I've just been playing it over because we've talked a lot prior to this. You're someone that we knew each other years ago, and then we kind of grew apart, but then reconnected recently, and it was just like by chance. It wasn't anything that was planned, but that's how the word line, when you're operating at a certain frequency, a certain alignment, how people can kind of come back into your path, which you did, and you came right in, poured into my life, man, in such a positive way, which I know we'll touch on a little bit more, but I want the people to really know who you are, and you consider yourself to be a spiritual billionaire, a mindful explorer who has chosen to pitch his tent at the three-way intersection of being kind, seeking knowledge, and leaving purposefully.
Yes, sir.
Spiritual billionaire. I love that. Like when I read it the first time, I was like, this is cool. I like this. So like the name, you want to walk us through the origin of it? Spiritual billionaire, how you got to that place?
Okay. Before that, thank you for having me on the show, man.
Yes, sir.
So spiritual billionaire, let's see. It came at a point in my life where I was going through a transition. The challenge I was going through at that point was, shedding the skin of living according to my parents' expectations. I was going through that phase of, what am I going to do without these people?
Yeah.
I'm sure a question a lot of Africans my age have, or a phase that they've gone through. Anyways, I was very conscious of this period in my life. This is about 2016. It was also about the time yoga, came into my life. So I think that's what led me to the spiritual billionaire part. Because I was meditating one day. I also started meditating a lot at that point in my life. And it was, a phrase that came to me while I was meditating, spiritual billionaire, because of my understanding of what spirituality is at that point. And, the abundance I wanted to experience, so the way I see it now, and it's like we're spiritual beings, right? And as spiritual beings, we're infinite, but we live in a human body, which is finite, right?
That's right.
So that paradox, I feel goes in hand with the phrase spiritual billionaire. The spirituality is infinite, but billionaire is the finite quantifier, right? So it's like, to me, it's a reminder of I'm a spiritual being.
It's a high finite quantifier. I like.
I'm a spiritual being having a human experience,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And how do I express this spirituality to people in an abundant way?
Yeah.
That's the reminder for me. That's the spiritual being. So the being kind, seeking knowledge, living purposefully, that's how I feel I'll do it in an abundant way.
Yeah.
Like, for example, now I currently work in a warehouse, right? Logistics. The people I work with on a day-to-day, some of them I see them as random people I meet on a day. I mean, a random person I meet for the first time that day. Just being kind and extending a smile and asking them how their day was or something.
Yeah.
It's something they weren't expecting. But I feel like it's a way for me to express my spirituality in an abundant way to them, if that's of being kind.
Yeah.
So I know this is kind of a long-winded answer, but that's how I've chosen to live my life now.
Yeah.
And I feel if you look at it, it's an evergreen. The I love the fact that it's evergreen, like that definition, or how would I say, how I consider to see how I see myself. I love the fact that it's evergreen. So 40 years from now, I can still be this.
Yeah.
50
So
years from now,
true.
I can still read that and still feel like it's something I can aspire to,
Yeah.
if that makes any
It
sense.
does. It does. And it gives me what I'm getting is, as I hear you explain that, is this sense of you've achieved a level of peace, and you're going to be able to quantify that and carry that on as you continue to grow in life. I don't look at life as like aging. I look at this. We're having this experience, and like you said, like I like knowledge is something that I chase after. But when I first interacted with you and we reconnected, it was different, right? It was different in the sense of it's been a long time when I disconnect with someone, reconnect, and when I listen to them, like everything you were saying, I felt the authenticity behind your words. I felt this willingness to someone you haven't connected with in years, to just, you were looking for like ways to help me. And it took me back, right? Because, I try to, like you, have a positive influence on people, be optimistic regardless of what's happening in life. I like to reframe things from an optimistic perspective. But when I felt that, it was different. And I knew, and I told you that when we had our phone call. I said, there's something different about this guy. And when we got off the phone, I thought about it, man. Talked to my wife. I was like, I can't get my mind off of this conversation I just had. I feel like God, because like you shot me a text, because you have a podcast too, which you're gonna, we're gonna talk about.
That African Mavericks,
right?
Shameless plug.
You sent me a text. You just launched your online store, and I went on there. I started looking at, and one of the links was like a podcast. I was like, this went right when we started Full Circle Chat. I clicked on it and I started listening. I was like, dude, there's something here, right? And
Appreciate that, bro.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
you just know. And I think the most important thing was I paid attention to the inner noise, right? And you touched a little bit about how you got to this place, getting into yoga, all the pressures, like you talk about, like your parents. How do you today stay aligned with all the pressures of the world? Because I know you still get it from all corners of the world, right? But you stay aligned on this spiritual journey that you're on.
It's a great question. How do I stay aligned? So you're asking me, how do I show myself love?
Yeah.
So I started taking this mindfulness course recently, right? Mindfulness is something that I started practicing some years ago because of yoga. And what it made me realize is that I find this funny every time I say this now, but I'm a divine being having a human experience.
Yeah.
Right? And what does that mean to me? To me is understanding that everything I tell myself is a story. Everything that life is happening, right? Life is happening. Whatever you add to it is the story you tell yourself, right? And the mindfulness coaching thing I'm taking now helped me, and the practices I've been doing over the years helped me become aware of the stories I've been telling myself for some time, right? And to answer your question, how I'm able to, at least in this present time, how I'm able to, safeguard myself in the world, or from the pressures of the world, like you say, is, making friends with that story, or the person that's telling that story Let me put it that way. The person that is telling that story, making friends with them. I know it's crazy to.
No, there's no such thing as crazy in my world. No, I'm serious.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no such thing because whatever works for you, because I believe we're the creators of our reality. And nobody can come and measure what is crazy or not crazy for your experience.
True. Very true.
Right? Because you're the only one that can do that.
Yeah.
So if you say crazy, you're the one that's given it that label.
Very true.
I'm intrigued
Very
by
true.
what you just said.
Very true. So I like the fact that you said that, because it's a very, very clear example of what the point I was trying to make. You know, there are stories I've been telling myself for a while.
Yeah.
And now I've come to realize that, like you were saying earlier at some point, I think maybe before we started recording, how, you know, the Spiritual Billionaire, when you read it the first time, it made you think of, you know, how you want to see yourself in this world, regardless of the precious people, you know, the world tried to put you wherever the world wants to put you.
Yes, sir.
But the phrase made you, you know, understand that it's you that has the say in the matter, right? So for me, for the longest, I was unconsciously buying into the stories that the world was telling me. The world around me was telling me. You know?
Yeah.
So let me be specific about
Yes,
that.
sir.
The world around me was telling me. I was buying into those stories. So now, in this present time, I'm conscious of that. And I'm now conscious of the fact that I can't fight that story. It's futile to fight the story because it's there. It's becoming friends with the story. That is, I feel like, is the the challenge now, if I use the word challenge, to make friends with that story, so that whatever the world says, I can have a conversation with that voice in my head.
Ooh, listen.
And we can now say, okay, this is the one that I want to, because we are friends.
This is the guy I want to listen to right here. I know, I'm with you.
you
I'm
see what-
following. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so different, but I can relate to that. We live in a world, at least from my own experience, I think it's similar to yours. And I kind of want to touch on, like, because you talked about the shedding phase, just who you were before that. Because that it's always important to be able to paint the picture. But I went through the similar, mine was more recent, like that shedding phase. And I know, man, I'm 38 years old, man. I'll be 39 in a couple of days.
Happy birthday in advance.
Appreciate it, man. You know, getting younger. You feel me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, but
Younger and wiser.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, listen, the thing is, I know I can say this confidently in my heart of hearts. I've never had one negative thought about someone else in the sense of wanting them something wrong to happen to them, because I haven't been wired that way. I've always said that the universe, God, whomever, put a heart in me that he didn't put in anyone else. I agree with you. We are divine beings having a human experience. So we lack nothing. We have everything. But for a long time in my life, I felt like I lacked a lot because of the people I chose to be around. Nobody did anything to me because it was always, I had a choice, right? And I felt in those moments the best choice was to have everyone that was around me validate the decisions that I would make. I wanted everybody to be happy. I wanted everybody to be okay, because if they're okay, then I'm okay. But I want to kind of like, if you can paint a picture of prior to getting to that shedding phase, what was life like for you?
Okay. Prior to getting To that shedding phase, what was life? Life was amazing. So
Yes, sir.
I'm the second son of 6 kids.
Wow.
You know, I'm a twin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Shout out to my twin sister, my better half, like I say. We, of the 6 of us, my twin sister and I are the only ones that were born in the States. I say that for a reason because I appreciate that. That's something that, growing up, I didn't really grasp it, but now that I'm older, I appreciate that. Because I'm here having this conversation.
Yes, sir.
Born in the States, grew up in Nigeria. Growing up in Nigeria was amazing. We grew up in Surulere. For those who know where that is.
I know exactly what that is.
Okay.
My grandma used to live in Surulere.
Okay. Grew up in Surulere. Primary school, secondary school was in Corona. Let me see. I was very, very heady kid in the sense that, I was intelligent, but also very, would I say, boisterous. up until like my GS2 or GS3, like I was first or second in class. I'm saying this for a reason because I want to paint a picture.
I'm with you. I'm following.
And this is all because of, the influence from my dad. Mainly my dad, he was a disciplinarian, like every African parent, Nigerian parent.
I wouldn't be here without mine.
Yes, sir.
I know it.
Shout out to my dad. Let me see. The guy used to make me like every term, because that's what we call primary school back then, right? Every term, the holidays after that, he would make me go over the math textbook from front to back. Like,
Oh, wow.
answer all the questions. That was my holiday.
Really?
Yes, sir.
You're supposed to be relaxing. You're doing bad. Come on, pops.
Like, of course, there was play involved, but throughout the holiday,
Yeah.
that was the goal. Like, you make sure you complete front to back throughout the holiday.
Yeah.
So I guess that was a lesson in time management that I probably didn't learn too well, because now I learned to save, wait till last minute to do certain things. But my dad was a very big influence on my life. He was an engineer. He was a civil engineer. Built a company. Watched him build a company when we were growing up, a very successful one. So that means he have afforded us some pleasantries of life, right?
Yes, sir.
Went to a good school, secondary school, chosen by my parents. When it was time to go to college, the question I remember asking was, what kind of engineer
Really?
designs cars? I was a very artsy kid. Even though I was I was good intellectually, right? So certain things came easy to me. I would say certain things came easy because I put in the work, thinking back on it.
Hard work, man.
Thinking back on it, like I was trained to be able to grasp things, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But when it was time to choose my major, even though I was at that point in my life, I was in music class, I was doing arts, I was in arts, I was in a debate club, the question I asked was, what kind of engineer designs cars? Even the thing that made me think about design was this show I used to watch at the time called Overhauling. Basically, it was that Pimp My Ride era.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, it was, we're friends, right? I know you have a raggedy car. I'll call the show and tell them, hey, man, my friend needs a overhauling of his car.
Oh,
So
yeah,
plan-
same concept.
Plan
Really?
to get your car stolen. the whole time you think your car is stolen is in the shop getting worked on.
Yeah.
And at the end, they'll review the car to you, right?
Yeah.
So I used to love that process. The guy that owned the show, Cheap Fools. I was 9 years old when I 8, 9 years old when I was watching the show.
Yeah.
I still remember it at 35.
Yeah.
His name is Cheap Fools. Cheap Fools was one that used to design the cars, and I love that.
Yeah.
So when it was time to pick my major, I was my parents' expectations.
It always creeps in.
They led the way there.
Always does.
They led the way there.
Yeah.
So it was like, what kind of engineer designs cars? And I was told a mechanical engineer. That's how I went to university and studied mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
That's even another story, because in university, I get into university here and people around me have undecided as major. I'm like, undecided? You can actually
Welcome to America.
you can actually apply to a college, enter college, and you don't know what you want to study. That was a very funny concept to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I even remember, it's my junior year. I remember having this conversation with my mom. I'm on the phone, literally crying to her, like, "Hey, man, Mom, I don't want to do this engineering anymore, man."
Oh, you got into it.
Yeah, I don't want to do this engineering thing anymore, man. But she was like, you gotta do it. What would your dad think?
Yeah. Oh.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Type stuff. So ended up graduating. 2 weeks after graduating from college, I moved back to Nigeria. That was
Personal choice.
What do you think?
Man.
So I'm back in Nigeria with a blue passport and a American trade degree. My friends are like, "Yo, what are you doing here?" But that's a story for another day. I'm trying to paint a picture of what led to that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So the things that informed my decisions then, up until that point, were my parents' expectations, particularly my dad. Went back to Nigeria. I worked for the federal government, actually, one of the best periods of my life, I think, when I think back to it. I was working on the railway project. Since Nigeria, I'm just going to put this here because this is something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, no, put it out. Come on.
So since our independence, they've not built a railway in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to be one of the engineers, Nigerian engineers that built the railway that they built in Abuja.
Yeah.
From Abuja to Kaduna.
Yes, sir.
I literally traversed from the beginning of that line to the end. I walked that thing with leg.
Really?
Yeah, but not in one go.
Oh, yeah.
Because
while you guys were working on it. Yeah.
And it was a fortunate thing. The position I entered in, this is one reason where, me and God, I have a kind of relationship.
Wonders.
that we'll get into down the line.
Yes, sir.
But before I got into this, got working with this company. There was a guy that was working there, 2 weeks working with okay, let me paint a picture. It's the federal government is the clients, right? The consultants were an Italian firm. The contractors, the people that are actually doing the work, which was a Chinese firm. So as a client, we had teams on the consultants that were supervising the contractors doing the work. I was on the team. I was on the Italian company. I was working directly with the Italian company that was the consultants. So every day my conversation was listening to Italians talking there and trying to communicate in Chinese. That was an interesting experience. But why did I bring this up? So the 2 weeks before I got hired on that project, there was a guy that was hired in the position I was hired on. He was working directly with this Italian engineer, older guy that did not have had little patience.
Yeah.
Apparently, obviously, because he was fired in the guy that they hired to work with him was fired in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I came in and, I guess I impressed the guy because they kept me on. And I was fortunate to see, like a month after I came in, that was when they started laying the tracks from the beginning of Abuja. By the time I was done with that project, we had laid all the way in Kaduna. So being able to see that was, a beautiful experience for me. It was a very beautiful experience for me. And, fast forward after that, started working with my dad, So,
What a transition.
yeah.
Oh, man.
I went from working in a system to working as the system, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. The system your dad put in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because most Nigerian firms, some people that are hearing this may relate, the business is built around the individual.
Yeah.
There are really no systems in place that can, ensure sustainability, that type of stuff.
Oh, that's a good point. Something to highlight. Yeah.
Yeah, so I came in and, like I said, I came from working in a system to working as a system. And as a 26-year-old kid, that was too much for me. I'm gonna be honest.
In Nigeria too.
In Nigeria too, like
different.
Bro, I've never built a bungalow before in my life.
Yeah.
The only thing I've built are projects, with spaghetti sticks in college.
Oh man.
Yeah. But I went from that to overseeing hostels. We're building hostels for the University of Lagos. I don't know if I should put that in there, but who cares? It's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth, right?
Yeah.
We're building hostels for the University of Lagos, and it's 3 different buildings. Wait, no. It's 4 buildings in one site, another 4 in another site. And I'm overseeing those 2 projects, bro. That's
At 26.
At 26, bro.
Yeah.
Coming, and I had to basically be the operations manager for both sites. And I'm the funnel to Oga at the top.
We know Oga.
Everything is, funneling through me.
Oh, wow.
From going on the sites, funneling through me.
Gosh, I can only imagine the people, the different perspectives you're exposed to, the people you're dealing with. But your demeanor, you're built for that.
Bro,
how was it? What was the growth? Because it makes me think about, okay, do you believe there's a hidden strength in not knowing, in uncertainty?
Oh, definitely, bro.
Because you went from that straight into this. Did you know that transition was going to happen from the government work to working?
If I tell you how I'm at the gas station, the things that happen, this vivid memory. Yeah. I'm at the gas station, right, filling my car up, and my dad calls me. He's in Lagos at the time. I'm still in Abuja.
Yeah.
That's where the project course was. Maybe it's 2 weeks after, because I quit working there. The reason why I quit was around that time, they had transitioned from PDP to APC. People in Nigerians that I'm talking about will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it was a federal government project.
Yeah.
So funds.
So there was a change in government, basically, for the people that...
funds was cut short. So we literally had a meeting one day. They were like, so because of what's going on, some people are going to have to be laid off.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in that meeting
You don't have to you guys
put a name in the hat. Don't think too much. Just I volunteer myself.
Oh God, that's funny. That's actually.
I just felt like my time there had run its course.
I'll touch on that later.
I felt like my time there had run its course.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks after that event, my dad calls me randomly when I'm at this gas station and tells me, so your father is working here in Lagos and you're there doing what?
Sounds like pause.
No, bro, that's how like a couple days later, man, I'm on a bus from Abuja to Lagos, man. I remember this thing so vividly because on that trip, it was a Sienna. I was sitting in the back,
Yeah.
last row. I was sitting directly on top of the tire.
Yeah,
And the tire did not have hydraulics, so every
Oh,
bump,
you felt it?
bro. By the time I got to Lagos, my sciatica was like for a week. I had to sleep for a whole week. I had to sleep with pillow between my legs, bro, so I could sleep at night. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, how did we get? What was the question again?
No, the uncertainty, right? The strength.
Okay.
Do you find strength in it? Like, because you made that transition, like you knew in that moment. Because
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know, bro. So it's just following instructions that when you think back, it's like everything was working for you.
yeah,
If that makes any sense.
yeah,
Because as I'm saying this thing, I'm like, obviously there was a point in my life where, like the transition I was talking about, I was transitioning from, it's like stages of grief where you go through all the emotions.
yeah,
That's one of the things that I've come to realize. Like, you got to go through all the emotions, bro. Like working out in the gym. When you're working out in the gym, after a good day workout, you feel sore, right? That means that soreness tells you that the muscles are growing, right? It's the same thing with emotional maturity. When you're developing emotional maturity, some days are going to suck. You're not going to understand why you're having these shitty emotions. That's something
Yeah,
that
no.
I'm going to sit with. Like, why am I having this? So I've gone through this phase of blaming, feeling I was a victim for having these emotions, to understanding that these are just emotions and they came from somewhere. So can you find the source of what triggers you in this way? And back to what we mentioned earlier, become friends with the person that is aware
of what's happening.
of that
That's
story.
powerful, bro. Yeah, that's the sitting in that discomfort.
But to answer your question, because I interrupted you and said I didn't know. I was talking about uncertainty, right? Just to look at it from, because that's another thing that I shared, like my religious perspective. But I still believe like there's truth in the Bible, if that makes any sense. It's a book that's been here, that standard the test of time. So that, to me, that means there's some truths in it, right? But to me, it's more of like a spiritual guide on how to live this life practically. It's not that's the reason why I'm going there is most of the stories in the Bible, it was a story of going to the unknown. Going to the unknown with the limited resources, with the doubts, with the everything you feel you're not worthy enough to enter this unknown with.
Yeah.
Go. Every story in the Bible is that. There's no one where God told the person, hey, when you get to where I'm going to, this is going to be the exact guarantee.
Yeah.
It's just go and do this do this thing. Whatever happens, happens. So it's like, from that standpoint, I'm in this phase in my life where, like, I'm courageously entering the unknown, even in small things, like driving down to this place to have this conversation with you. On the conversation we had, I talked to you about the anxiety I felt. What gives me the credibility to come on the other end of this conversation and have this with you? I've seen one episode. I'll be honest with you. The first episode, I was going to watch the other ones, but I was like, no, I don't want to taint until after I've come and had this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Then I can now start watching, because I don't want to taint my, perspective of what I want to come here and have an authentic conversation with
that.
you.
Nah, I like that.
So that's like me venturing into the unknown. And every time I've done it, God has always said, yo, good job. And it showed me like, hey, nice one. You know, even if it's not like an amazing, or what's the word? I'm like, not amazing, but according to the worldly standards of what success or blessing should look like. When I've taken a step back to look at the outcome of that uncertainty that I embraced, it's always been valuable, bro.
You touched on something. Success.
Yeah.
We hear that word a lot. What does that look like for you? Right? What is success for you, and how has that evolved throughout the years? You know, you talked about your journey, graduating college, going straight to Nigeria, going straight into this role, working for the government, which is in Nigeria, it is not something that I know is common. It's a complex role. Going from that right into a role with your father, which is someone that has really, you've been looking at him, his expectations has been kind of pushing you to take certain steps. Overall, through all that, because you've experienced success at the highest level, which makes a lot of sense of the wisdom that you have today, which now our conversation, the first phone call we had after we reconnected, is starting to make a lot of sense because you've been around a lot of tough situations and scenarios and environments and you've been able to sit through those. So what does success look like for you today? And how has that evolved over the years?
Okay. Thank you for that question, because I have a broad definition of success. Before I came to this, success was meeting my dad's expectations.
I can't point a finger at you because like it's 4 pointing back at me. You know what I mean?
I can laugh about this nowadays.
Yeah.
It's a testament of growth.
Yeah, it is.
But success to me now is how, I don't know if you've come across this guy, Earl Nightingale.
Never, I've heard of him, but never really dove into his work.
Okay. Earl Nightingale is one of those pioneers of self-help, audiobooks, and all those things, you know.
Yeah.
He has this definition of success, that success is the steady progression of a worthy ideal. I was like, When I sat down and thought about what that meant, I was like, yeah, this is what success means to me. A worthy ideal. You've sat down and thought about what a worthy ideal would look like. Now, success is the steady progression of it, because you have no say on what the outcome is going to be.
Come on.
You have no say on what the outcome is going to be. So I feel like that definition, why I love that definition so much is that it's like, in it is a source of motivation to just keep going. Like, to keep going. Because you don't know.
That's right.
Like the people that up there, if you have conversations with them, you know, they will let you know through that they're just figuring it out. They just keep taking action towards something, right? So that's what success is to me. And if you see, if you look to like take the trajectory of my life over the years, I've been taking action, man. I've been taking action. I don't know what, like, to the standards of the world, they may not look like success. But to me, every stage I've been, I found a way to be consciously grateful for that, you know, period, and like do my best in it. Obviously, there are days when it's like, man, it's not even just about the thing I'm doing, but it's just life.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not even coming to like the mindfulness thing that I was talking about. It's helping me just embrace the journey.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what success is, the steady progression towards a worthy ideal.
So recently I was having a conversation with a close friend of mine. He literally, I don't have like a large, I don't have a lot of friends, you know, married, have my kids, but like he's the one guy that I talk to maybe consistently probably more than I talk to my wife. My wife says sometimes, but he's like a mentor.
Yeah.
Incredibly human being, been through a lot, and he's always willing to. And this is the thing: someone that's been through so much, and they give you insight to almost help you navigate that if you come across similar situations. And I told him this. I said, success for me is the process. So the goal in my life, my entire goal of my existence, is the process of whatever it is that I'm doing, nothing else. There are no outcomes, because when I've tried to frame or plan for a specific outcome, it never happens that way, because in my life, God has the ultimate outcome. So what can I focus on? The things that I can control. A wise man once told me that we tend to try to control the things that are out of our controls, which are the things God should be controlling, and the things that God needs us to do, we're waiting for him to come do for us. See how nonsensical that is? You know what I mean? So the process is the goal for me. And I define what the process looks like. We live in a world, like you said, there's a lot of constructs. There's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of reasons to compare to whatever, people, what they're doing, accomplishment, materialistic items, things of that nature. And I'm not perfect. I'm flawed. So I'm sure I've had thoughts of those type of things, right? But the consistent work that I continue to do, right, to focus on the process. Like today, had a long day. I know you had a long drive here, but I was looking forward to this conversation. No expectations, because I already know that this right here, regardless of everything that I've gone through today up to this point, was going to be the most freeing moment of my entire day.
Highlight of my day.
It's amazing, bro. But my goal in life, my success, is the process and nothing else. So nobody can come, first and foremost, and define the process for me. People can do that in their minds. It doesn't have any influence in my mind, in my world. People can look at me and say, he's this, he's that, and utilize worldly constructs to try to label me in their minds to keep me in the position that's comfortable for them. It has no impact on me. Used to. Wasn't always in this place, but it no longer does. But my definition of success, which I like that, because what that tells me, what I'm getting from you, is the process is the goal. You just, no matter what, you take a step forward. You keep going. You don't stop.
Let me add to that. Before I add to what it seems to me like you're learning to become an effective person. The reason why I say that, probably you've heard of this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
I have.
So something I realized recently that my brain has done over the years is this, because I've read a lot of books. I still need to read some more. And take more action, because it's not about the books, but it's about the action. But the books,
they're good.
It's weird.
A lot of good information.
Yeah, exactly. On what action to take.
Yeah.
But why did I even bring that up? Yeah, 7 Habits of Highly Effective. My brain does this thing where it just picks one thing from the whole book. Like I was thinking back to most of the books I've read, and it's like one thing I can remember. But 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the one thing I picked from that is locus of control. Effective people have an internal locus of control. Ineffective people have an external locus of control. What does that mean? They focus on things that are within their sphere of influence. And what someone else thinks about you, the outcome of something, that's outside your sphere of influence. You can't, no matter what you do, you can't affect the outcome, if that makes any sense. You can increase the chances of the outcome you want, but the outcome is going to be the outcome at the end. Back to the one thing.
Yeah.
So the entire 200-hour yoga certification that I went through, one thing I picked from that Well, this one I picked up a few things, obviously, but the one thing that always comes to mind is the definition that we were given of what yoga is. Yoga, you talk to a typical person, and the understanding of yoga is the asanas, that physical poses and stuff. But yoga is beyond that. Yoga, the definition I got from that practice was, or the training was, is the practice of stealing the vacillations of the mind. Yoga is the practice of stealing the vacillations of the mind. What is vacillations? Vacillations is moving back and forth on something, right? So you want to steal, yoga help is the practice. So it's like, to your thing about process, in the definition of yoga, it tells you there that yoga is a process on how can you live your life in a way whereby you are, would I say, single-minded on certain things. You're not always vacillating back and forth. So things like breath work that people don't really talk about, breathing. As a matter of fact, it's funny how this life works, because one of the things I was thinking, even for days before we got here, that I was going to do was suggest that we start this thing by taking 3 deep breaths. That's how I start my podcast.
Yeah, we can always do it whenever we want. Like,
Okay.
just keep going.
But things like breath work, things like meditation, things like, there's the asana of non-violence, just be not even just physical violence, but non-violence in your thinking, in your intention, stuff like that. So it's all those different limbs of yoga is how you can practice stealing the vacillations of your mind. And it's an ongoing process. And that's one thing that I've really appreciated about my yoga journey. That's really helped, besides the physical aspect of it, from a mindset standpoint, it's helped me become very more curious about life. It's also helped me to not take myself too seriously.
Yeah.
One of the quotes that I've come across that I've stolen and it's up there in my head too is think lightly of self but deeply of the world. I don't know if you've come across that quote.
No, first time.
Yeah, but that's another quote that, I live by. Like, I don't know what to, you probably saw it, but the Tyson clip before the Jake Paul fight. I don't know if you came across it, where this young girl
I saw that.
That's
saw
the
that.
best thing I've seen
Well, he
all
told
year,
the truth. He said what I was thinking.
bro. Like, for real, bro.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah, he did.
Like it's, when you think about it, it's really it's futile.
Bro, it is.
All these things we are gunning for, it's, we have to, because we are here.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
It is all futile. It's at the end of the day. What's the end goal? Somebody said to me once, it's like, what's the rush? The only one place you're headed is death. So why are you rushing through life?
it helped me. So, like, back to that, I just had the thought of back to that transition period. That was one of the things I actually experienced firsthand, because this person that I looked up to so much, my dad, right, living my life according to his expectations and everything, I saw how life hit him, and it was a big blow for me, bro. It was a big blow for me, bro.
Yeah.
So it made me come to this understanding, like, what are we, like, yes, you want to achieve. I'm not dismissing that. But are you doing it mindfully? That's the thing. Are you doing it mindfully?
That's deep. That, what you just said, is transformative. Because I know there were points in my life where it was just moving. No mindfulness. Just thinking that's life, the chase. But with that question you just asked, I want to dive into, because I'm like, there's so many questions that pop up for me. What does that even look like? What does it mean for me to live mindfully? Right? Like, I might, in my head, I could tell myself I'm living mindfully, but like objectively, how do I measure? Like, what does that look like? So now I know, okay, I'm actually doing that. You know?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because that's something I aspire to be, a mindfulness coach. You're the first time I'm saying that out on
Well, you will be.
on the airwaves. I'm still embracing that identity, as you can see.
Yes, sir.
But a few days ago, my yoga mom, shout out to Dixie, she's the owner of the studio where I work at. I told her about like this whole mindfulness aspiration, right? And she stopped and asked me, what does that even mean to be mindful? And for me, that was a mindful moment, because for a 60-year-old yoga instructor to be asking me what does mindfulness mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So to me, from my studies so far, what I understand mindfulness to be is observation without judgment. Observation without judgment. That's what it is. So remember when we were talking about the stories that you've told yourself? Those stories. So one of the most insightful experiences for me this year was experiencing my first niece
Congratulations.
come into this world.
Congrats.
Thank you. I was fortunate to be the person that received her in the operating room, because her dad, which is my sister's husband, couldn't get a visa into the States.
Oh, wow.
So I was the one that actually first person in my family to hold her.
Wow.
Yeah. So like,
it's an honor.
As a dad, I'm sure you can understand.
Oh, man.
That's an experience.
3 times. Oh, man.
This person has no filter at all. This thing you're carrying like this has no filter at all. Like, no filter. There's no judgment. Somewhere in the Bible, it says if you want to enter the kingdom of God, be like the children, right? What is a child? A child is almost like this may not be the best analogy, but kids to a certain degree are almost like dogs.
Yeah.
No matter how much you beat them, this one, they will go beat that and they will come back to show you love.
That's right.
Without judgment. It's over the years.
They build up that.
Based on the things you've been telling them, this is good, this is bad. This is good, this is bad. So, and as Africans, growing up under African parental influence, not even just African parental influence, but not just the parents, but the everything around it. There's a lot of judgment. I know this is the way of the world, but I'm speaking particular to my situation because that's what I experienced.
That's it. Perspective.
African parents, African environments, African families, growing up in the religious perspective that is commonplace. Nigeria is the most religious country in the world. Religion, the way it's propagated back home, it's all about judgment. This is bad, this is good. Instead of loving our neighbor as we love ourselves, like we were told, we come out of the church and we are not loving anybody. It's like, so to me, I feel like that's one of the number one messages we're supposed to get that we are not getting. Not love, but actually mindfulness. Like, for you to be able to love somebody as you love yourself, that means you have to look at the person and just take the person for who they are. you're not placing any judgment on them. Like, you're not placing any judgment on them.
That's right.
So I guess we're still trying to answer your question about mindfulness. So
Yeah.
to wrap that up,
Yeah. No, I like it, man.
to wrap that up, mindfulness is observation without judgment. Can you get to a point where even with yourself, one thing I love about the course I'm taking now is it's the initial part of it, it tells us that for you to be able to coach other people, first of all, you have to coach yourself. Right? And like your mentor you were talking about here, something you said he has been through a lot, and he was able to get through that. And for him to have gotten through that, there's had to be some kind of coaching that was going on in it. So he had coached himself out of that situation. You see?
Yeah.
Because it was a challenge. It's like the first time you're trying to learn how to play basketball, let's use sports. The rookie comes in there, doesn't know what's going on. Someone now coaches him into his what's it called, right? So that rookie stage is a challenge. He doesn't know what to do. It's the same thing with us when we are on this journey of individuation. That's a word I came across recently that I love. Individuation is basically the process of becoming who you are. The process of becoming who you are.
Becoming.
That's not not who you are meant to be, but who you are.
I know. I caught it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going long-winded here. I lost my train of thought.
It's all good. We can always come back to it when it comes back to you. It always comes back. You didn't lose it. That's just if when I reflect on just some of the things you just said, just the journey and that definition of mindfulness, what is it, without judgment? Observation without, like that right there is, for me, should be a way of life. Because I think, or I believe that a lot of our interaction, social interaction, come from a place of judgment. We meet somebody before you get to know them, which I've been actively working on to not do that. So being curious, I've chosen the curiosity path with people, and not even people that I've known my whole life. Maybe we stop talking and then reconnect, because we're human beings. We're always evolving. We're changing moment to moment. We're becoming a different person, but we don't realize that. We think we're still in the same moment, or we're still the same person. We're not. Like, I left my wife this morning, right? When I go back home, she's not the same person. So I have to be curious and open, like I'm interacting with like a brand new baby. I'm not perfect, not a perfect father. And because of some of the things that I've gone through, I've been conditioned. You said something that was powerful, is letting my kids to be free, letting them express their emotions, letting them know that it's okay to sit in it. Not, I've done it. Like, he's crying. So why are you crying? There's a reason why. Got to let him express that, sitting that. But that's why conversations like this are so pivotal and important, because as human beings, we need that ongoing source of information or communication that helps you continue to stay aligned in the frequency of becoming. Not becoming someone different, becoming who you are.
So I as you were speaking now, you just reminded me of, so it's the individuation was leading back to the mindfulness. So in the process of becoming who you are, it's observing and coming to accept every aspect of you.
Yes, sir.
Even the part that you're not so, you don't want the world to know about. Accepting that, the emotions, things like shame, guilt, these are things that, or even like bad, I don't want to use the word bad because that's placing judgment, But things that we've been conditioned, let me put it this way, we've been programmed to think is bad, like jealousy, greed, anger, envy. Every one of us has that. Like, we all have that.
Yes, sir.
Growing up, we were, the judgment for the programmed us to want to live up to certain ideals, and we start there's a tendency for us to dismiss, or not dismiss, but deny these parts of us. But with mindfulness, or at least what I'm coming to understand from this process I'm going through, is that you come to see these things and you just sit with it, because they are going to come and go. At the end of the day, you are a divine being having a human experience.
No, because with similar backgrounds, we come from a place that the goal is to paint ourselves as good, which to me, we have, like, you can't be one without the other.
Mm-hmm. The yin yang, they thought about, this is Eastern philosophy and all those, even the religious, if you read the Bible, most of the people that did noteworthy things were horrendous people. They did horrendous things, but God still used them.
That's right.
For good. So it's like embracing. I'm not advocating that people go out there and do bad things. But I'm just
no, I get the point.
I'm just saying the point is accepting every part of
all of you. That's right.
The process. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. And not shun, like, this part of me. No, I shouldn't be that. I shouldn't do that. Or I'm perfect, or I shouldn't tell a lie. Listen, we're a human being. We have every emotion. Envy, like you said, jealousy, it all comes. Now, when it comes, what do? Are you now saying, no, that's not me? You just had the thought. So who's had the thought? You did. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's the funniest thing when someone is really defending themselves as a good person. To me, it's hilarious to experience. But
it's like saying, I remember someone saying to me, I don't know if the person was telling me because I had done it. It was like, if you have to call yourself humble, question that. I was like, that's a very good point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, because. Yeah.
No.
You must think so highly of yourself to think that you're humble.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, man. But I have another good question for you.
Yes, sir.
But I think...
Before you go, I have a question for you.
Okay.
And it was based on what you were saying earlier.
I like it. Let's get it.
Okay, so you had mentioned your kids, right? Like something a mindful practice for you now is being present with them, right? Let me ask you this question. I asked my sister earlier today. Do you have emotional aspirations for your kids?
Ooh. Yes.
Okay.
I do.
And what does that look like to you? Or what's your understanding of my question, and what are your emotional aspirations for them?
So my understanding of the question is, you asked me if I have emotional aspirations for the kids. Mm-hmm. Basically, how do I see them handling their emotions growing up?
Okay, love that. Yeah, you get the question.
Oh yeah, come on, man.
I'm just,
I'm with you, brother. But, and that's a great question. But I think about this. Even if I have the vision I have of that, mm-hmm. I really have no control over that.
True.
Right? Because the world will tell you, read this book, read that book, do this, put them in this private school, put them in this school district, all these things. Well, now you still have no control of how they internalize their experience, their emotions, which, to answer your question, I want them to be able to sit in their emotions without feeling that something is actually wrong or labeling it. So my wife and I are very intentional about never labeling. That's a practice we have in place right now. So not telling you, oh, that's a good emotion or that's a bad emotion. We ask questions, and then we tell them to question us if there's something we're saying that doesn't make sense to them. My kid's 4, 2, and she had a baby girl, 4 months, 5 months. But my vision is for them to be able to sit in it and still feel the level of peace that I've been able to achieve today, and know there's nothing wrong, and know that everything that's happening, all these emotions that I'm feeling, the discomfort, I got to still take a step forward, keep doing whatever I'm doing, and understand all these emotions is actually benefiting me. Because if I'm able to sit in it and still continue to take the steps, down the line I'm going to reflect back, and if that emotion does come up again, it'll be a completely different experience. When you run from it, every single time it comes up, you're gonna have it's like you're going right back to kindergarten, starting over. So if I had a vision of what I want their emotions to look like, that's my response to that. Just be able to sit in your emotions, handle it, know there's nothing wrong. You don't have to label anything. Feel it, but keep moving. Never stop. And that's it.
How are you showing them this?
I live it.
How?
By
Can you think of an experience where you you showed them a good example of handling your emotion?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there's been situations that I've reacted and gotten upset with them, and I learned in those moments, and I apologize intentionally to them, right? And funny thing is, we went to dinner last night, the 4 of us. We didn't take the baby girl, but my wife, my 2 boys, and the same, because that's how life works. And that's what happens is you're going to get the same iterations, tests of the same situations to see how you're going to handle it. It's like almost leveling up, right? In my world, not in whatever the world thinks of leveling up looks like in my world. But it happened again, and my son Caleb, my first son, looked at me because he has an expectation of how I should react. And the funny thing, when he looked at me, we made eye contact, and I knew. And this is because of how I take time, bro. A mentor I was talking to you about, he taught me this thing about listening to your silence and like categorizing your different silence that you feel with colors, which helps you be able to pinpoint it not only in yourself and other people. But when I looked at it, we locked eyes, and I knew he was waiting for me to react the same way, and I didn't. So I just stood in silence. Tone is important with children, and I just said, you okay? You know? He said, yeah. He got up. We kept moving. Versus, why did you jump off of that? You're gonna hurt yourself. All these things, you know what I mean? Like I heard growing up. But it was the moment that I knew that he was expecting me to react because I've done it before. And then God, the universe, actually made me look at him, because if I was being transparent about what I was feeling in this moment, I was going to have the same reaction. But because in that moment I saw him, bro, I don't know what came over me, can't really explain it, but I knew. And in that moment, I knew something different happened. He knew he knows that he can be free. He knows that he can, and I'm not going to, he's not going to, there's no expectation for a response, because now he's confused. He doesn't know what's going to happen from me. He doesn't know what he's going to get.
No certainty.
Yeah. You know, but that's the only way that I can put that. And it's not something that can be perfected. I think it's something just to recognize and be intentional about. Right?
100%.
You know, so.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because, you know, that's something I am, would I say, interested in. I don't want to use the word passionate, because it's not like
okay, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, like it's not passion, but it's just I feel one of the things for my journey, one of the things lessons that I feel like is to be shared from my journey is emotional regulation, emotional maturity, that kind of stuff, And I say that because from a mindfulness standpoint, and I say that because, just watching how I grew up, reflecting on how I grew up, and conversations I've had with a lot of my peers, a lot of us are affected by our parents' inability to regulate their emotions. Leveling up. I love the word. I like the fact that you're using the word leveling up. I think is providential, if that's the right word, because that's something I was thinking about too, like leveling up. From the context that we grew up in, it's a one-sided thing. Go to school, read your books, pass your exams so that you can get a good job, become a contributing member of society. That's the kind of leveling up that most of us were programmed to. In that, how many of us were actually taught how to level up emotionally? How many of us were taught how to level up from a social standpoint, physically?
Yeah.
How many of our parents, our parents, were mindful of showing us physical leveling up intentionally?
Can't recall many from my perspective.
So these are kind of things that, and I feel all those things play a role into how you show up for your kids. Because if you're not, from my understanding, if those other areas are not being mindfully looked at, you show up emotionally immature with your kids. You're probably going to always be on survival mode because you're not taking a step back to take care of all those other areas.
That's right.
That's one thing. So that's the reason why I asked you that question, because I would love for it to be top of mind.
No, you did bring that top of mind. You did. And I thought about it in real time, and it's just fortunate that something happened recently, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, I tell my wife this is just when I raise my tone with my kids, it upsets me every single time. I can't explain it, but it does. I don't know. I'm not even trying to label it, categorize it. I'm not trying to do the whole, because, like a therapist will try to do all the whole psychology thing. I'm not doing that. But I have an awareness that I get upset with myself when I raise my tone, because it's just, I am literally duplicating something that I've experienced. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
If you do the same things, you're going to get the same results.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to go on like a lot of like self-development journeys on my own, just through just some difficult life events, been able to just keep moving, keep taking steps forward, never stop. This has been a tough year for me.
You can say that again.
But I don't stop, because I'm telling you, it's just when sometimes I can't even explain when things around me just starts to like implode, right? And I always tell myself this, and this right here, what I'm experiencing always, and this is my personal perspective, is a reflection of my inner state. To mirror. Mm-hmm. Nothing is happening to me. Nobody's doing anything to me. So when I experience something that I feel like there's some kind of dissonance, I go inside and say, okay, what's the belief that you have inside of you? What's going on? What's the shift? I'm not placing blame on nobody, nothing external. It's all me because my life is a mirror of my inner state. I'll tell you this, 99% of the people I'm around don't think this way. They don't even know this. This will probably be except that my mentor, the guy, close friend of mine, I'll tell you about. We talked about this. He's very brilliant in the quantum mechanics world. That's not my thing. He's an analytical guy. He's the one that knows how to speak with the neutrons and the particles and the things of that nature. I don't even go there. I'm not even going to try to act like I know that stuff. I tell him, listen, please simplify this for me, sir. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bring it down to Christian's place level. But I told him, like, bro, everything I've ever experienced, even moments that I try to blame others, was all a reflection of my inner state.
Yeah.
You know, and that gets me thinking about reflection, right? Because if you think about the past, the present, and the future, it's like it's happening at the same time almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Can I jump in now?
Yeah, jump in.
I'm on the edge of my seat because you say things that's getting me excited here. First of all, the quantum mechanics thing.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in it too, but
Yeah.
my background is in engineering, and I'm a very curious person.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out is you had mentioned curiosity too, right? It's like, it's a very beautiful mindset to have, just to be curious about what's going on. You know, internally, externally, it's just being curious.
That's right.
But back to the quantum mechanics thing, did some, when I was studying like manifesting, visualization, all those things, because as a yoga instructor,
Absolutely.
those kind of things
I believe it,
delved into my world.
Yeah.
And my understanding of quantum, there's this thing in quantum mechanics, I think it's called, I don't remember what the name of the person is, but it's like the observer effect. It's like quantum mechanics has proven that nothing actually exists until you observe it. Does that make sense?
It does.
It doesn't exist until you observe it. And the other day I was scrolling and this girl pops up on my thing and she talks about this thought experiment that I've explored in my head too, which is, you've probably come across it too, is if a tree falls in the jungle and you're not there to hear it, does it make a sound?
I've heard that, yeah.
And have you ever thought about that? Like, well, that's something I've thought about
because we didn't observe it, yeah.
A few times this year. I've just randomly thinking about that concept. And the other day I came across this girl explaining it. Apparently, from a purely scientific standpoint, if a tree falls in the jungle and you're not there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. Why? Because sound is objective. Sorry, sound is subjective. Sorry, subjective. There's a way she explained it, but apparently is frequencies that the antennas in your ear pick up. That's what makes you hear the sound. So if they are not, so a person, probably a deaf person could be standing there and there's no frequency.
The tree will fall right behind it. He won't even know.
So it doesn't make,
Yeah.
So that kind of explains how, you know, to a certain degree, everything is subjective, right? And that's why. So this was like an understanding that came to recent after watching that and having that understanding.
Yeah.
It's like that's an argument for embracing the process, because the tree, whether or not anybody was there to hear it, had to fall for a reason. Let me use a different analogy. If an apple tree, right? An apple tree.
I'm following you.
An apple tree, when it's grown its apple, right, and the apple falls on the ground, it's going through that process, right? Regardless of whether anybody was there to pick up that apple and eat it and get nourishment from it, the apple will still grow the trees and it will drop
Regardless.
on the ground, right?
Yeah.
It is now the usefulness of that apple tree or the success or failure rate of that apple tree is subjective. It's based on the people that are walking by and picking up the apples and eating the apples and getting some nutrition from it, right?
Yeah.
So it's subjective.
It is.
But at the end of the day, from the apple standpoint, the apple is succeeding because it is growing trees and, it is growing apples and dropping the apples on the ground. So for me, it's like, back to the success thing, whether what the ideal for that apple, because its purpose is to grow apples and drop on the ground for people to eat, right?
Yeah.
That's what the ideal is, for it to be able to do that. But whether or not that happens, it's not up to the apple. Does that make sense? Are you following?
I'm following you.
It's not up to the apple to say, okay, I'm successful because people picked my apple and ate it and was nutrition and they got some nutrition from it. No. Yeah. The success of the apple, of the tree, is its ability to keep doing what it needs to do so that the apples will grow and fall on the ground. Process. The second thing that you mentioned earlier from what you were speaking was like the concept of time. Past, present, future, right? That's another thing that if you delve into quantum mechanics, it will explain to you how everything is happening in the moment. There's no past, there's no future. Everything is it's happening in the moment. And one of the analogies that helped me grasp that was, imagine this table right here, right? And there's you place a piece of sugar here, a cube of sugar here, right? And there's an ant at the corner over there. The ant is doing what it's doing. It's not conscious of the sugar you just placed there. At some point, you're watching the ant. The sugar is still there. At some point, it's going to become conscious of the fact that there is sugar here. From the point when that ant becomes conscious of that sugar, he's going to find it, right? But the sugar is in his future. But the sugar is here in your present. But to that ant, it's in the future. Does that make sense?
It does.
So the ant is going to do whatever it needs to do to find the sugar he placed it here that has always been there the whole time. So it's like this concept of, being grateful for every moment. Because whatever it is you're gunning for, it's like it already exists.
The sugar.
The fact that you've become conscious of it, like the ant became conscious of the sugar, is indication that thing exists. So are you willing to now do the rigmarole and whatever all the way to get this sugar that already exists? And the interesting thing is, as us humans, we'll see that ant doing all these things, and sometimes I feel like that's God. That's how God plays with us. You gotta put a piece of pencil in the ant's way.
Yeah.
The ant will run into it and be like, what's this? He would investigate it. At some point, we'll find a way to climb over, or we get around it. In life, when God places pencils in our way, do we just stop there, or do we look at it and with some curiosity, what is this, so that we can be able to navigate out of it?
Let's go.
So it's I guess that to tie it all together, that curiosity, maintaining that curious mindset, is what helps you appreciate everything that is happening and understand that it's purposeful. You're working, things are happening for you.
Everything. The world is rigged in my favor.
Yes, sir.
bro. And there's things that is happening in my life today that the old version of me would have looked at as a challenge. But it happened, but I keep moving because everything is a reflection of my inner state. The world is rigged in my favor. And that sugar cube that I'm going to get there. And it only matters to me what that sugar cube is. Nobody knows, right? But I know I'm going to get there.
Yes, sir.
Regardless.
Yes, sir.
But that's a powerful perspective you just shared. Because
thank you.
It is. It's different. And it's impactful for me when I think about that. Because we have all these different iterations of what that thing's supposed to look like or that place. And that's why I really just kind of horn in on and just focus on the process and not even focus on any specific outcomes, because every outcome that I've been able to experience has been nothing but bliss when I reflect back. But the concept of time, the most important thing for me right now with time is I don't want to ever feel confined here with time. So when I feel that feeling and I know it, I gotta figure out a way to not feel that feeling of confinement, the time. I will feel rushed in life. But we live in a world, and I do this, I have to like really explain to people that like in my world, there's no such thing as being late. Because if you understand your word line, you understand that you weren't late. You understand that you navigated that path to get there at the time you got there, because that was what was meant for you. Nothing could have changed. Nothing can change anything, right? Like,
sir.
Things today, there's been a test to try to maybe derail, I don't know what, but it's all me. So it's not, I'm not looking at external. I have to think like, what is it? Maybe I had a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
For the conversation too.
I have something to share on that.
Yeah.
But before I do, my favorite modern philosopher and one of my favorite individuals that I've not met, Nipsey Hussle. I don't call him a rapper.
Yeah.
I call him a philosopher.
Yeah.
He has this song where it says, "Perfect timing feels like I'm too late."
That's exactly right.
Like, to the world, it may feel like you're too late, but that's perfect timing, man. Everything is happening in its time.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I don't look at things like, even, there's a lot of constructs around age, or you're supposed to do this by this time. To me, I don't, because those are all man-made.
Mm-hmm. If I would assume that, or presume that the reason why you think that is probably growing up, there was someone, of authority that made you feel that you weren't doing something when you were supposed to be doing it. I don't know.
You nailed it.
But let me ask you to that. So before I ask the question, from my practice, right, and this is just me trying to teach or use what I'm learning, so that apparently that's one of the best ways to really learn a topic or a subject that you're interested in. As you learn, you teach. Learn, you teach.
That's right.
So in this mindfulness coaching thing, right, there's 5 messengers that usually pop up. I wish I can remember the 5 of them, but one of them is I am time bound, I am less than, I am flawed, I am disconnected, and I am, can't remember what the last one is, but time bound, right? These messengers, the reason why they're called messengers is that whenever you feel that feeling that you're talking about, right, it's usually because of the stories that you've been programmed to tell yourself around those 5 messengers. I am time bound. I am flawed. I am less than. I am disconnected. Can't remember the last one.
We'll get it later. I know you'll share with me later.
It's like, yeah, I'll share. But
Yeah.
it's like, what stories are you telling yourself around those messengers? For you, you're conscious that you have this thing about time being time bound, right? The practice is mindfulness, right? Learning to observe without judgment. So one of the things that is suggested, which I've been doing as well, whenever I'm mindful of these moments that come up, is that's why I shared with you the whole anxiety thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was very cautious of that. But is realizing that you were programmed to tell yourself the stories around those messengers. And that is what is limiting you. That was my understanding of limiting beliefs. Because whenever I used to hear limiting beliefs before in the past, what I used to chalk it up to was things like self-doubt, But I didn't understand what the concept of limiting beliefs is until I started taking this course, and that's my understanding of it. It's like the stories you've been telling yourself around those messengers is what is limiting you. Once you can become aware of those stories and accept them that they are just stories, and show yourself some compassion, some compassion for believing those stories, that's when you break the limits that you've put on yourself, because then you understand, you're able to step away from those stories and understand that you're a divine being having a human experience.
Man, you said it, brother. Oh my gosh. This has been nothing short of, like, I'm telling you, I already know that there's something on the horizon this week after this conversation, because there's a lot of release happening for me, right, as we talk. And I appreciate you sharing the insights. And I want to ask you a question about reflection. What role does reflection play in your journey of self-discovery?
My reflection is self-reflection, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing without it. This journey of whatever it is, individuation, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing without self-reflection. Another quote that I came across some years ago that I live by is an unexamined life is not worth living. I think this one is Plato, one of those guys, Greek philosophers. An unexamined life is not worth living. Well, at some point later in the day, this is like a funny, but I'm going to, when I get back to Austin, I'm going to stack my journals and take a picture of it and send it to you. Just because.
I'm gonna dive into that one, man.
If there's something I want you to take from what I'm about to share now and anybody else, is like journaling. Journaling is something that's helped me a lot on this growth path, this growth journey, or this life journey I'm taking.
I was gonna ask you to share with share with me, if there was one thing that you would say has been pivotal on, like, the self-discovery journey, what would it be?
Journaling. Gratitude journaling. Let me put it that way. Gratitude journaling, because when I think back on it, for the longest, that's what I just did, because, discipline. I'm human.
Yeah, absolutely.
The discipline to just always sit down and write is not something that I initially had. But what helped me develop the journey of, the habit of journaling, excuse me, and also from a mental growth standpoint, mental health standpoint too. Because I don't know if you remember, I alluded to the fact that this journey of growth can be very painful emotionally, and it's just the analogy with working out in the gym, right?
Yeah.
The emotional pain you're feeling is because you're working out emotionally, you're growing the emotional muscle, but it's gratitude journaling, to answer your question, I have a habit of 3 things I'm grateful for. If you see my journal since 2000, I think I've been keeping a journal consistently since 2016.
Wow.
Consistently since 2016. You see it today. I am grateful for 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
Sometimes, and it's that simple habit is the number one. I think if there's anything I would share with somebody as a tool that they can use, that can improve any area of their life, is gratitude journaling. Because I honestly believe that gratitude is a superpower. That's one of those weird thoughts that I walk around with.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. It's a good thought, man.
So to answer your question, just gratitude journaling, 3 things you're grateful for. This doesn't have to be, when people hear this gratitude journaling thing, they think it's like count your blessings, big things. No. I'm grateful for, sometimes I write, I'm grateful for my finger.
I have limbs.
If you're having those rough days where it's hard for you to be grateful for the things that are going on in your life, look at people around you. That's another thing I do that has helped me as well, to step out of myself, because
Flesh.
to step out of myself and look at things that happen in people's lives that you are just grateful for.
Dude.
Right? And write it down.
The last couple of days, I've come in contact with some people that they just share their stories with me, and you don't know what people are going through, and that's why your approach of always being kind, because you never know. Right?
It's a journey. It's a journey. That being kind one too is a journey, because for me, it's the journey of being kind is like, for me, it's going from being nice to being kind. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's going from,
same for me.
and I used.
There's a nuance there, right? Being nice and being kind.
What do you think it is?
Being nice can sometimes be inauthentic.
Okay.
Because you think that's how people want you to be. Being kind to me, is an energetic connection to everyone you interact with. Operating from a spirit of curiosity, like, I don't know what this person is going through, so I'm going to be kind. Without, and this is the most critical part, any expectation of reciprocation. So that right there, I think, in the world that we live in today, and I struggle with this too, is like doing something for someone, being kind, right? But in turn, you're expecting something, maybe not now, maybe later in the future. Like, that's the one I have to be very, very, there's a lot of awareness around that for me. So when I do, and I even say this affirmations to myself. I expect nothing back from doing this. Because I really wanted my subconscious to understand that anything I do in this life, I need nothing back, because I've already gotten everything I ever wanted in this life existence. I've experienced it. Because I've seen how incredible God can be, like this. But this conversation, man, it's been great. Like, this is, I want to keep going, but I know we'll have plenty more opportunities to converse.
Definitely.
I appreciate you taking the time to come down here from Austin, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Share your story with us, connect, just every time we talk, man, it's magic. And I knew it would be nothing less
Thank you.
than amazing, brother. Any last words, thoughts before we get out of here?
Any last words, thoughts? Keep in mind that you're a divine being having a human experience.
Yes, you have everything already in you.
That's
true.
I feel that's something. That's a thing that came to me recently. That I feel like if you sit down and think about it, reflect on it, it's very transformative.
Yeah.
puts aside the, the laughs and the facetiousness, but
Yeah.
sit down and really think about that concept of being a divine being, having a human experience. I think it's transformative.
Yeah.
Do I put in my plug?
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's talk about your podcast. Share some. Yeah.
So the African Mavericks podcast. That's a project I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
It's also something that came to me around that transition period in my life. Just wanted to have conversations with young Africans that found the courage to bet on themselves. Found the courage to bet on their truth, like I like to put it.
Yeah, we see you have that on today, the bet on your truth.
I got the merch.
I remember I told you when I saw that, I was like, that is an amazing slogan.
Thank you.
Because your truth is all that really matters. Like, I'm telling you, that your truth is all you need in this life. And my truth is connected to God for me. And he's the only one that needs to validate me. So if I'm betting on my truth, I'm betting on him, because he orchestrates my truth. But it's a powerful slogan, man. But you guys should definitely check him out, because I've already gone in and amazing stories. African Mavericks, he's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah.
But
TikTok.
yeah, man, it's just it's great having you, brother. Like, it's been a great conversation, man.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate it.
We'll do this again for sure.
Yes,
I know it.
Yes, sir.
It's been a pleasure.
Just let me know.
Appreciate you, man.